Agus leads all of models. I only in jest, but only half jest, refer to him as the lord of all models in some of the largest banks around. Years before that, he built the last real engine that one of the largest car companies has built, and it's out still running over the years. He tested it at extreme temperatures, probably in deserts of Arizona, to make sure those models actually work, and safety of cars to safety of models. So today, I'm super excited. Please welcome Agus Sudjianto to the stage.
Thank you, Sri.
So Agus, without further ado, I want to kick off. What is this? So with great powers come great responsibility. I kind of prompted the topic. How does one manage risk of LLMs? Should LLMs be severely regulated? What should be done? They're taking over the planet. On one side of the Silicon Valley, you'll hear LLMs are destroying everything that we know. On the other side, there's the techno-optimism, which we actually believe very strongly in. So please play the judge.
Well, I probably look at it from the more practical point of view. This is our day-to-day things, how we use this tool in real world, right? So for me and for us, all models are wrong, and they will be wrong, and they will be more wrong. So we understood that. And what's important is really understand what the limitation of this model and how we're going to use it properly, how we're going to manage the risk. So I'm not in the camp of gloom and doom, and I'm a bit worried about that piece because when it has gloom and doom, and this is personal view, not Wells Fargo view, when governments start playing into it and decide the winner or the loser, I don't think that's the wise thing to do. That's in my opinion. And we probably have in the history many of that. Some of the experience when government picked the technology winner, the outcome may not be what we would like to, and typically we're going to bear with the consequence of many, many years, even 100 years. I came from combustion engine. That was part of the things that we have to live with combustion engine for 100-something years. So I would say, I hope we'll come with a sensible regulation, which is important, but I hope it's not going to pick a winner.
Regulatory capture, as they will say, right? Sort of, but getting to the basics of how you're enforcing model accuracy, model validation, and of course with Alethea and some of the projects you've built, interpretability for even deep learning models is something you've strongly advocated. Perhaps worth touching us up back on how model validation today is helping the planet.
Some of you that's not from banks probably have a definition, use model validation probably differently than many of us that's in banks. In large financial institution, we spend a lot of time on model validation. And let me put a little bit context on this. For every 3 model developer in Wells Fargo, we have 1 independent model validator. And they report to different line all the way. To the top of the house, report to the different line. So model risk management, the practice of model risk management with model validation, that's our independent. Independent report to the chief risk officer who report to the board directly, completely independent. So people that do looking at model validation will not be influenced or contaminated by the business need. So that is the setting in large institution like bank. Because we use a lot of model, it's a model can create financial harm and create harm to the customer as well. So the independent is very, very important. So this is part of my criticism to the field, because when we look at responsible AI, that is very, very important. And then you can look at who are the head of responsible AI. What is the seniority of the head of responsible AI? Who the person report to? And if you have the head of responsible AI report to the business, that's also build model and use model, then you can start smell the rotten piece, because it has conflict of interest, right? So I think that is part of what's important for us. How do we how the model validation people that do testing of this model have absolute power to make decision whether model can go to production or not, and what need to be fixed before model can go to production. Of if model go to production, what kind of monitoring and risk management that need to be done. And that's something that becoming a lot more challenged with large language model, of course, because typically when we build model with certain intent and purpose. We choose what data to go in, we control the data, and we control the architecture of a model. For example, for credit decision, the architecture is very controlled so that the model is inherently interpretable, not in LLM. So the model is there, the foundation model is there. So now we have to do damage control, how to control it, instead of building from the ground up to be model that's very well designed. And this is typically not how engineering is done. I used to design engine, so we are purposefully have a design mindset, how to design. And we have to deal with different paradigm in LLM. The model is out there, not very well designed in terms of all kind of consideration we done, and we have to do risk control from that.
So for an LLM, what part of the techniques, so we were talking about eval first design for LLM powered applications, are most of the methods that the bank has in place, or at least some of them, are still applicable for LLMs, or are they outside?
I think the principle are there. Let's say explainability. This is a difficult subject in LLM. In tabular data, the issue of interpretability are solved. We can build inherently interpretable machine learning model, sophisticated model. LLM is different things, right? We're dealing with embedding and sometimes large embedding dimension. So at the end of the day, yes, we need explainability. And I think somebody is going to talk this afternoon about interpretability, right? So it's about, if you look at LLM, it's all boiled down into embedding. How the information are embedded in the high dimension of hidden layer. It's no more than that, right? So now it's about understanding what the information is captured and represented in the embedding. Is the embedding correct? Is the embedding make sense? So the issue of interpretability or explainability are about understanding the embedding. And that can be done in various ways. By understanding embedding, and many techniques that we can apply to understand what is the embedding, how embedding represent information. There
was a talk that didn't make it to this event. Will probably for the next one, which is embedding is all you need. And I think Professor Stephen Boyd was going to power that talk for us in the next H2O GenAI world. But you have a very similar thought process on embeddings, probably worth opening the...
Yeah, embedding is not something new. It's just a very, very different way in a neural network. Every hidden layer in a neural network is embedding a different embedding representation, right? Even in traditional model, in regression model, we have embedding. For example, a simple embedding, we do log transformation, we do square transformation, we created a interaction. That's embedding, right? In tabular data. Now the embedding in large language model is a bit more complicated because some of you that know statistics, principal component is embedding, right? In here it's just, okay, I'm going to do masking during training. That's how you create embedding. So many ways to do embedding. And the key in all of this application is what embedding is the best. And I'm looking at it, and that depends on the data, depend on how you train it. It's like every one of us speak differently, different style, thinking differently. LLM out there, we have so many of them, are like that. It's a different style, and different embedding will be more appropriate for certain application than the other, and pick which one by evaluating which one that will be more suitable for certain application.
Can LLMs be used to produce model documentation?
We do use large language model in our model documentation in a few ways. But let me say a little bit, because a lot of discussion talk about RAG and fundamentally how we're using LLM in our real world, at least today. It may change in the future, but at least today. We don't use LLM to store knowledge. We let the database store the knowledge, right? So we have vector database, that is your knowledge, right? That's why you have document, you store it in there. We don't use LLM to store knowledge. What do we use LLM for? We use LLM for English. This is trained very well with English. It can rewrite really well. Don't ask LLM knowledge, ask your database knowledge. Ask LLM to write it in a nicer way or in a certain style. So when we do model documentation, because we do a lot of model documentation and model testing, we have some requirement. So we use LLM to check whether it meets the requirement that we set ourselves, how to document model and all of those things. But those are always combined with the knowledge, and the knowledge in the vector database, not in LLM. So we use LLM to do prompt, to process prompt, to do embedding, find it in the database. So we probably poor use, but it's you just use it LLM to embed, and then do as index to document search for your knowledge. Once you get the knowledge, now you summarize it, you send it to LLM to rewrite it in a nicer English. So we use large language model to help model documentation, to write documentation, to also us to do quality assurance whether it's documented properly or not.
So LLM is really a good English
for me, yes.
generator.
Yeah, it's better. For me, it's a blessing. I'm not a native English speaker. I hate writing before. Now I can write easily, right? Easier at least. So, but we use LLM, like I said, as a good writing, it's a good generation things, but it's in limited way. The knowledge is in the database.
There is a talk later in the evening called "Never Write an Email Again, Use LLM." So that's the headline of the talk. Question for folks who are just joining into this space. They're all starting to enter from generative AI as the first business users. Sometimes when contracts or RFP organizers, procurement people are getting into AI with GenAI. What are some pitfalls that or what are some ways they can truly understand the nuances?
Right. Well, I think for somebody like me who's been working in the data science for many years, sometimes I feel like I was born 25 years too early, because I remember when I got my PhD in '96 in neural networks and machine learning, I could not find a job, right, in machine learning. So I have to design engine. So I say, okay, I left that behind, I designed car engine. So it's 25 years later, all this thing back, and the demand of this data science and AI came from the user instead of from data scientists, which is really incredible. So the idea and what they have, what they would like to, is a good thing. Now how to channel it to do it properly, and for large institution like us, we want to do it in more coordinated way. So what we have is, we have a centralized team that take all of those ideas. We have hundreds of them across the company, and then we prioritize, we look at it, okay, this is the highest ROI, this is what we're going to attack, and also the risk side is probably more manageable than a lot of the unknown. So that's what the prioritization that we do, and I work very closely with our CIO to put the system together and the where the system is developed and deployed, etc., in much controlled way. So for us, when we have all of this, we're looking at it from two axes. One is from the user point of view, and the other one from the usage point of view. From the usage point of view, many of you familiar, we use LLM a lot for classification, document sorting, routing complaint, and all of those things. Those are classification problems. And then we use LLM for information retrieval, document retrieval. And then we use LLM for information retrieval with summarization, which is RAG, and also summarization will into that. And then LLM for pure content generation, which we kind of limit the use on the content generation. So we use 1, 2, 3 that I talk about. The content generation is a lot more limited. And then in terms of user, we look at it from, is it expert user? Assisting people to write code, that's expert user. Is it from a more novice user, internal user, novice user? Or is it going to be a novice user assisting our external customer? This is banking center, answering question from the customer through all of this, right? And then really the external customer use model, use it directly. This is typically like our chatbot, right? So those are the 4x4 matrix that we look at, and at each of those entry have different risks involved in it. And based on the risk and the opportunity, how fast can we build, how fast can we deploy, what kind of return on investment, and what kind of risks that we are dealing with, we decide which one we're going to attack first. So that's how we communicate, how we talk with the user across the company.
So not long ago, maybe just same time last year, pre-ChatGPT era, right? You were trying to push applications of AI to different parts of the business. Now the business is pulling in more ways than normal,
right?
Especially NLP use cases, right?
Yeah.
How, what kind of guardrails do you recommend?
We were a little bit draconian on this, so we shut down ChatGPT, we shut down cloud, we shut down anything generative AI out there, right? So the web is just blocked. So we decided to do that because of for some reason that we think is important. So we blocked many of those, most of those, all of those actually. We blocked those, and for us then, okay, which area that we're going to use and apply, and what kind of tool that we make it available internally for people to be able to customize and develop appropriately. So we are really looking at the, again, based on those metrics that I talk about, that set up our strategy in terms of, yes, everybody want to do it, but we're looking at the return and the investment and what the safe and responsible way, so that if we cannot do it, for example, we're not going to do content generation with external customer to use it directly. So we're not going to have something like ChatGPT, right? So that's completely new, basically. So at least for the near future. So based on that, Sri, that's what we look at the guardrail, depending on who are the impact of the model. If the model impacting our team member, if model impacting our customer, that will be a lot more stringent requirement compared to I'm using it to do autocomplete of email, right? So it's really very, very broad gradation in terms of what kind of guardrail or no guardrail in some area, depending on what are the harm or damage that this model can do to the company or to our customer.
Let me ask you a question which is more, probably more closer to H2O. One of our customers recently chose us over some of these large language model companies with a quote they used, "You're not just an LLM company, that's why we like you," right? Can you kind of You've experienced H2O as well from different angles. Can you kind of expand, I mean, probably give voice to that sentiment? Is AutoML, regular statistical machine learning, is that old-fashioned, traditional? Is that obsolete?
Right. Well, I know the noise today and the excitement is in LLM. The potential are huge, are big that we can do because we do process a lot of document. But at the end of the day, today, we have a few thousand model in the company. About 15%, 20% are machine learning model. So we have our universes model. A subset of that are machine learning model. And subset of that are deep learning model. And subset of that is LLM. And subset of that are GenAI. So we look at the magnitude, the number of model, right? So those are what we have to deal with. So when we look at tool like H2O, we use H2O before
we met,
right? Because we use the open source, the H2O generalized linear model, GLM model is fantastic tool that used very, very widely, right? Because of the scale that this open source can do. So we experience it from that. And then our predictive machine learning, which is our bread and butter, large population of predictive machine learning model that we do. And then, of course, nowadays, this is the LLM, which will grow. Okay,
the growth rate of GenAI is faster.
Yes. And if we look talking about LLM, we using LLM starting probably in 2019 when BERT came out in 2018, right? So that's the small language model. We call it today small now with BERT and all the variants of BERT. We've been using it for quite some time, and so it's very, very natural way to do. And it's just that, Sri. Okay, and then. The thing that's important is we rely a lot on the open source. We use a lot of open source, and we like model the smaller the better for the certain purpose, right? So for a lot of language, for our model validation report, 7 billion llama to rewrite what our knowledge have is enough. So why do we want to go to a bigger model? Those kind of consideration that we look at really depend on the use cases, what model we want to use.
I mean, I think you're a huge supporter of our vision for open source LLMs. Open source LLM powered software stacks, which RAG is a first example of. I mean, I think a very strong builder of communities. So thank you for all your support over the years, as well as when we started on February, March, April. The number of brainstorms we've had on interpretability for LLMs and how to build some back when pre-Falcon era, when the models were even more not as good. What would, I mean, you're also, I think I remember Agus calling me one day and saying, we could just use an Apple computer for inference. What kind of, what is your advice for kind of the cost of AI?
Yeah, I think it's, we run out of time, I have to do it very quickly here. I think it's really inference time and cost are very, very important. So, and depend on the use, what you need. We use it more as a certain way that we don't use really, we don't really not need large model. Other area will need large model, but most of the things that we do, you don't need, and cost consideration is very important. And inference at the cheapest at commodity hardware, your laptop and things probably will be important for certain applications. So I think it's the beauty today is we have wide range of availability, a lot of smart people working on this. Building model becoming a lot easier. The key is building API, building apps, and also testing the model, right? The key is not building model, but building apps and test the model for so that we know what we have.
That's all we have time for Agus today, but thanks a lot for joining us for the first H2O GenAI World. hopefully we'll have a lot more experiments and real live applications same time next year. Thank you. Thanks, Agus.